Welcome. No, we will open our meeting. Welcome to the Joint Planning and Parks and Arts Commission meetings. This is Wednesday, December 10th, and we will begin with our roll call.
Joe Mann,
Here.
Tom Solberg,
Here.
Jim Bumpker, DG Garcia,
Here.
Charlie Jenks,
Here.
Dale Robbins. Oh, let's see. Phil Follier,
I'm here.
Gene Hoyschel,
Here.
and Troy Molnix.
Here.
And if I may, Jim Baumker did let us know that he was going to be late, that he had a prior appointment, so he'll probably be joining us shortly.
Parks and Arts.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Hill with the Parks and Arts Commission. Thanks for having us today. We're excited about the joint workshop, and we'll start with our roll call. Nancy Hill, I'm present. Bob Schneidmiller. David Heimbaugh. Is he online, Evan? Okay, not yet. John Barr, he let us know he's unable to attend today. Joni Hay. Present. Katie Ferris. Present. Laura Frank, she also let us know she was unable to attend today. Megan Bollinger, our student commissioner. Good to see you. Noelle Laparco Otterson. Present. Katie Ferris. You're still here. You're still here. And I already said Joni Hay. So I'm reading it off an email list. I didn't have a printout. Oh, and Gary Edwards.
Here.
All right. Sorry. I didn't bring a list, so I'm cheating. All right.
Thank you all for being here. We hope this will be quite productive. Let us move on to Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll take a look at the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Just for the record, David Heimbaugh has joined us online.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Thank you, David.
You bet.
One change is we'll have a 5-minute break before the Planning Commission will continue. So give everybody a chance to get out and go home and have a cold one. So we will move on to
Move to approve the agenda.
approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Our workshop is Parks Master Plan, and we'll begin with level of service.
Unfortunately, Jen is not here yet. Jen Dial, who is doing this. I think we might have to pause for a couple minutes on it, just because it doesn't make any sense for us to go on to the Planning Commission schedule. I will text her right now and see where she is on her way.
You have the excuse for a moment.
Sure.
Oh, perfect.
But
You're up.
Okay, I thought so. No, sorry, I was pre.
We're gonna have to take the mic back to the podium thing. We're short on mics today, so we have to pass a little bit.
Okay, that works. Well, good afternoon, early evening, commissioners. My name is Genevieve Dial. I am the project manager with SCJ Alliance, working on your Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So I have a kind of a presentation overview to give all of you about level of service So.
And Evan's going to pull up that presentation right now. Thank you, Evan.
While he's pulling that up, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Eddie. He has been working a lot of the number crunching that's gone into this level of service methodology and has been a big help behind the scenes on all things in the parks plan. So he's here to just be some support in case some certain questions come up. And you have something to hand out to Eddie? We just, I know you have a lot of this information in the packet that you received, but we thought it might be nice for commissioners to have in front of them just a list of everything that parks that went into the inventory that was used in the calculations that we're going to be showing you tonight. So it's just a quick reference guide to help orient you as we talk about some of this stuff. So. Okay. And with that, yeah, if you want to go to the next slide. So tonight, I want to just really give you a quick update where we're at with the project, what's happening with the current phase of engagement. And then the purpose of tonight's joint session is really to just inform you of the methodology, the analysis, the findings of the level of service process for the parks plan, and then hopefully come up with a recommendation for an adopted level of service that you can move forward through this process to bring into your comprehensive plan and share with City Council. So that is really our purpose here today. Next slide. So just a real quick, we are on the second phase of this project, which is focused on developing your capital improvement project list. And we are well into that process, which is looking at, community engagement results for different needs and desires in the community, doing our inventory and condition assessment analysis to see which parks might need updated amenities, facilities based on their life cycle status. And then just finalizing the plan and getting it ready to be hopefully certified and adopted through the Recreation and Conservation Office's process and ready to put into your comp plan.
Jen, if I may,
Please.
capital facilities plan. So the update is for the 20-year capital facilities plan that's going to be included in the comprehensive plan, not the 6-year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, the project list from the parks plan will inform you that the 6-year list and your 20-year.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for clarifying that, Lisa. Okay, next slide. Just a quick update on engagement. This second phase of engagement has been trying to talk to both community members, residents, taxpayers in Liberty Lake, and other visitors of Liberty Lake to help kind of start to define, do they want to further invest in what you already have, or is there interest in new and different facilities? Because knowing that kind of baseline information is going to help us as we start to suggest some priority projects to all of you. So we're starting with kind of that high level process. The bulleted list there shows you some of the events we've been to here in the last 6 weeks or so. We have nearly 500 responses already collected from those in-person events. And we're also doing online engagement through some mini polls and survey work. So that's just a quick update on engagement. Next slide. So really the purpose of tonight is to talk about the level of service. So I know I've briefly mentioned this topic to both commissions at different times, but I wanted to start just at the kind of the very basis of it is what is level of service? Why is it important? So it's really a metric used to evaluate and determine how well your current park system is meeting both the current community demands and needs and those projected demands and needs as Liberty Lake continues to grow. Why it's important, I could probably do a whole presentation on that, but one reason that's really important is the quality of life for the people who live and play here in Liberty Lake. One of our first survey questions that we asked when we started this process was, how important do you think parks and recreation are to your quality of life in Liberty Lake? And 83% of people said very important. So that's really the basis of this level of service analysis. And then there's that, state requirement from the GMA that, cities need to have a level of service metric so that can go into your comprehensive plan and be reflected in your capital facilities element, kind of guiding your investment decisions. So that's a quick overview. Any questions on anything so far? I know I'm going through this quickly.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm familiar with level of service as it relates to like, traffic in an intersection.
Yeah.
and delay.
Yes.
That slide talks about metrics for level of service. What metrics are used for level of service in parks?
I'm so glad you asked that. That's going to be in, I think, 2 slides from now. So yeah, we're going to get into the weeds a little bit. I don't want us to get too hung up on all the details, but I want to reveal to you the metrics that we used in this analysis. So thank you for asking that. 2 of the sources that we used for finding those metrics are the State Recreation and Conservation Office has a manual and a guidebook that sets some parameters and recommendations for best practices related to parks level of service metrics. And then there's a national organization called the National Recreation and Park Association, known as NRPA, that has been setting kind of the standard for park metrics for the last several decades. So that's kind of the, most commonly used across the country. And then RCO is sort of the state perspective on it that's a little bit unique to Washington. So those are the 2 sources that we looked at as we developed our process. Next slide. So like I talked about, the level of service methodology is going to identify some demands and needs that will be reflected in those capital improvement program projects that are suggested. It informs the level of service adoption process through the comprehensive plan and for your capital facilities plan. It also is, without it, your grant competitiveness kind of goes out the window, as RCO is the main state level granting entity for parks projects, and they have guidelines on LOS. If your metrics don't kind of align or reflect some of that process, you're not as competitive because your criteria isn't as defensible and credible. So those are the kind of ways that level of service is applied. Next slide. So that's sort of the background, the context for how we came to our process. Now I'm going to walk you through what that approach and methodology looks like. So when we got hired to do this project, we were thinking about level of service for Liberty Lake. Kind of the first step in our process was, what did you do last time? What's reflected in your last parks plan? So we opened that document up and we saw that you previously adopted a methodology of 30 acres per 1,000 population. That's a very standard formula. You'll find that in RPA recommendations. You defined parklands by the golf courses, the public parks, private parks, some school facilities, and your open space designations. That resulted, this is back from 2014, that resulted in 75 acres per 1,000 people. That was with the 3 golf courses, not just the trailhead. You also did an analysis with just 1 golf course, which resulted in the 37 acres. So you ran that number 2 different ways, but that was kind of, you used the standard process essentially last time. That's okay. So after we looked at the methodology you used before, our next step was to consider, well, what's the current population? What's the state of the condition in Liberty Lake now? And how is that different than how it was? And to do our job correctly, we need to look beyond today's population and look at how can we make sure that whatever level of service we establish is setting you up for success as you grow. So we looked at the future planning horizon, and your projected population in 2042 is approximately, 22,000 people. So significantly different than the 14,000 who are using your park system now. So we wanted to be mindful of that as we were making a recommendation. Because whatever this recommendation is, will determine to the extent that you develop or don't develop additional facilities.
Can I
Yes,
jump in,
please.
just to underscore that point? If our population estimates show that the level of service is inadequate, we must, in the 20-year capital facilities plan, in our comprehensive plan, show a means to finance the improvements that will bring us into that level of that will meet that level of service standard. There has to be a path forward to meet that as part of our comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Yep. Would you mind going back just for a quick second? There's the key considerations down at the bottom there, and this kind of points at what Lisa was just saying. Some of the questions we asked ourselves as we were looking at the methodology was, does Liberty Lake have enough parklands to serve the future population? Does Liberty Lake have the right kind of parks to meet public demands and needs, right? Like you have different classifications of park types, and are those the right type? Is that the right variety and distribution? And then are Liberty Lakes parks accessible to all residents? So those were some key kind of things we had in mind as we approached this. Okay. Like I said, RCO and NRPA were the two sources that we looked for guidance on developing metrics. In addition to those two sources, we looked at using peer community comparisons. So we compared Liberty Lake with other similar communities, local, similar sized, demographics, kind of, topography and that kind of thing. We did what's called a 10-minute walk shed. So we looked at your current park facilities and looked at what community does it serve, what population base does it serve within a reasonable 10-minute walk or half-mile radius of that facility. And then we looked at the community engagement results. What did we hear from the survey? What did we hear from all the, public comment we've received? So that's kind of getting at the beginning of what your question was there, Charlie. Next slide. Then to dig a little deeper, we broke that into, there's quantitative methodology and there's qualitative. I would say that the standard across the country typically has been quantitative. NRPA doesn't talk so much about the qualitative methods. It's kind of the standard formula of you've got acreage, you've got people, you divide them. But it's what that misses is your unique needs that the community is expressing. That might not be reflected in just an acreage calculation. And that might not necessarily address equity and access for everybody in the community. And it might not look at what the state and national trends are for recreation and kind of what's becoming popular. So we wanted to consider both the quantitative and the qualitative to give you a really thorough analysis. Your previous plan used quantitative methods. Not everything in those bullets up there, but most of those quantitative methods. So we wanted to just augment it a little bit with the qualitative. Next slide. So I know this is a lot of data here. It was hard not to get really data heavy in this presentation. So we first started with RCO's level of service metrics. So they look at your population within those service areas of the current parks. Liberty Lake got an A. They do an evaluation from an A to an E, A being best, E being poor. Because of the number of parks you have within access to certain population centers, Liberty Lake's doing really good there, got an A. Access, basically accessible by non-motorized means, you got an A. We looked at facility capacity. So what's the capacity of your existing facilities to serve your population? You scored really well there. We looked at the number of facilities, and that one was slightly less at a B, but it's still doing pretty good. And then we looked at the number of facilities that support active recreation, and that's getting at some of those public health goals to make sure that the park system you have promotes physical health and well-being. An A there. So that was one of the first metrics we looked at. And that's new. I don't think you guys looked at that last time in your previous parks plan. So next slide. So, and then this is a table to look at, this is now using NRPA's metrics, and these are those more standard quantitative. So number of residents per park. So we're using a median for, NRPA has a big database of all the different, parks of less than 20,000 from across the country, and then also the 20 to 50,000 range. We looked at both because looking out at your projected population for 2042, you're going to potentially be at over 20,000 people. So we wanted to look at both sets of data. As you can see, you're doing really good compared to some of the national median for either population group in terms of residents per park. Acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, that's that level of service metric we looked at. You're at 14.02. Whether you look at a smaller city size or the larger 20 to 50,000 population, you're doing better than both of those based on what you currently have in your system. And then miles of trails, that's 9.2. So it really is aligned with the national median for both population groups. And I just want to point out, I know last time I was here, we talked a little bit about the Centennial Trail and how we calculated that in our inventory. This 9.2 number reflects an updated calculation of the Centennial Trail. Yeah. So I just wanted you guys to know, we did hear that feedback, and we changed several numbers based on that. So, okay, next slide. You guys hanging in there with me with all the data? Okay. I know it's a lot of numbers. So then we looked at the peer community comparison that I talked about. So we looked at Airway Heights, Cheney, Hayden, Idaho, and Rathdrum. So across the top there, you see 2025 estimated population counts. So you can see you're pretty well aligned with in terms of size of cities. And then we looked at how many public parks does each of these cities have. Caveat for Liberty Lake, we wrote 12. And that's your city parks plus the acreage from the Centennial Trail, like we talked about before, including that in your park acreage. And then some of the schools that you have those co-management agreements with. So that's where we got that 12 number. Anyway, you're doing better than your peer communities in terms of number of public parks. Acres of public parks, that's also significantly higher considering that additional access to the school facilities, the school ball fields, and that Centennial Trail acreage. And then the final level of service, that 14.02, that's the acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. So you can see that's much higher than the peer communities based on, the caveat there is that does include some of the acreage from the schools. So that's not just like Liberty Lake owned property, but next slide. We did those 10-minute walkshed maps that I referred to. So we did a 10-minute walkshed service map for all the different types of parks. So for your community parks, which is your like Pavilion, your Orchard, and your Rocky Hill, your HOA parks, your special use parks like the Arboretum, the school spaces, and then just your zoned open space land. So there's a whole series of those in the parks plan itself. I just put one slide up so you could kind of understand what the methodology was, but we looked at service area coverage using that process. Next slide. We then put all those together in one map to show where the service areas did not serve a population center. So that kind of pink red color in the middle is where the population is currently not served within a 10-minute walk shed from one of those types of parks. So that helped us to identify if we were to recommend, for example, development of a park, it would make sense to prioritize in an area where people aren't currently being served. Slide. So then in our PA, this is something that we're recommending and something that you didn't do in your last plan, but is advised by NRPA, is to do something beyond just a standard acreage per population, but to also look at the number or types of parks you have in each classification. So how many big community parks do you have? How many neighborhood parks do you have? How many pocket parks? And create a level of service standard for each of those classifications. Because acreage alone could mean, I don't know, maybe you had a ton of pocket parks and you hit your acreage goal, but you don't have a single community park to have a concert. You know, that's the limitation of that. So we wanted to look at what is your current park classification, like level of service. So for community parks, those were identified as Rocky Hill, Orchard, and Pavilion. And they hit that definition because of their acreage, their size. They're in the 5 to 10 acre category. You have 9 pocket parks. The caveat there is they're in HOAs and they're not necessarily accessible to the full community. But you're certainly hitting far and above the level of service for pocket parks. You're currently meeting the community park level of service. It's when you project out to 2042, if you're a population of 21,000 people, you might be slightly low on a community park acreage level of service, but very slightly. Open space, based on the current acreage you have designated for that, you're sitting good now and into the future, and the same for trail miles. It's really where the potential deficit is in neighborhood parks. According to NRPA, you don't have a neighborhood park right now because it's in an acreage size that your parks don't quite fit into. You're really close, but not quite. And you have plenty of pocket parks if you're okay with the fact that they're, part of the HOAs. So anyway, we wanted to look at that. Any questions on that? I'm hoping I covered that in a way that makes sense. I think I defined a community park as 5 to 10 acres, but I meant to say that was a neighborhood park. The community parks are bigger than that. So
I had a quick question. Jen, from some of your numbers from previous slides, I think you were including Trailhead Golf Course in those, but then in this matrix here, that is not in there. Because it seems like Trailhead kind of skews some of the numbers because it's a golf course and not like a place where a kid's gonna go and play kind of thing.
Did we group that into open space for the purposes of this slide, Eddie? Because we didn't consider it a community park for the purposes of this.
I believe it's grouped.
Into open space. Yeah.
That makes sense because it's a fairly big number.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, good question. Okay, next slide. So that was kind of all the different data sets that we looked at. Then we sat with that and we just, tried to determine, well, what's our recommendations based on looking at all of that data? And we came up with kind of 2 concepts for you guys to consider tonight. The first concept we're calling alternative A is basically maintain what you have. Keep your 30 acres of total parkland per 1,000 population. That's what you adopted last time. And use that methodology and just carry that kind of formula forward. You could use alternative A 2 different ways. You could do it just with parkland defined within the city limit. So it would be all your parks, trails, open space, golf courses, and those school fields that you guys co-manage. Or you could expand it to be city limits and a more regional perspective, which is basically regional facilities within like a 3-mile radius of your city center. Because last time I was here, I heard interest in maybe looking at an LOS with that considered. So the table below there shows you what the outcome of either of those approaches is. Just looking at, and that's the inventory table that Eddie handed out to you, that alternative A, that's all the facilities that we're talking about when we say city limits. So you know what we considered in the inventory. If you just do city limits, that's 608 acres. It's a lot. And you end up with a 43 LOS. And if you stick with your previously adopted version, which was 30, you're hitting it. And then certainly if you go beyond and you look at the regional, I mean, you're up over 4,000 acres and your LOS becomes over 300. So it's excessively good. So that was one approach, is just to kind of keep what you have. Next slide, please. This is just the inventory, which is the same as what you guys have in front of you. I just wanted you to know kind of what properties we included in the parkland definition. You can go one more. Oh, this is just a map of the inventory of the regional assets that we looked at. So you can kind of see what that 3-mile kind of regional look includes. And then the next slide. So some pros and cons of alternative A. The pro is it's a more simple single system-wide LOS metric that demonstrates that acreage alone calculation, and it shows a very robust system in Liberty Lake now and into the future. So that would be one pro. The cons of this is it doesn't quite hit the mark with the RCO and NRPA recommendations for looking at those qualitative things, developing a level of service by park type. Another con is it doesn't really address those distributional gaps, like the fact that there's not a city-owned neighborhood park, and that there are some gaps in that 10-minute walk shed. It doesn't really get at the heart of those issues. And another kind of really important one is without showing some deficit about projected need, you're not going to be competitive with grants. So if there are park improvements you want to make and you want to get in front of RCO, you have to demonstrate that need and a level of service that shows you're far exceeding it now and into the future. You just won't be competitive. So those are kind of some pros and cons that we thought about with this particular approach. Any thoughts or questions before we go to alternative B?
I was wondering how the future of the town center park plays into this, because that's not developed yet.
Yeah, we ran another couple of scenarios with some potential future planned parks, not knowing for sure what Liberty Lake's going to decide on. We decided not to include that here because we'd end up with so many different scenarios, but we could look at that. I think if you add additional parkland, you're only going to exceed your LOS that much more. So the competitiveness for grants would just look like you have less need, because you'd have more acreage and more parks. So if grants are important, adding another planned park, while wonderful for the community, maybe wouldn't be the best with this particular adopted level of service. It would be a really good fit for alternative B though, which is kind of our staff recommendation.
So I'm clear, the limitation is the grant opportunities. It's not a mandated requirement.
No, there's really no mandated level of service like standard. You have to have a level of service methodology adopted, but you can have it be, it's unique to whatever your community decides is best for you.
Another question, if I can, what would the purpose of a grant be useful for?
Pavilion park, playground improvements, acquisition, if you wanted to develop a new neighborhood park. It can be used for, depending on which grant category you use, you can use it for development and acquisition or for new facilities.
So I'm not assuming like recently irrigation repairs at Pavilion, that wouldn't fall under that.
No,
Exactly.
That's asset management.
Understood. That's why I asked
Yeah.
the question.
yeah,
But it could potentially apply to like, development of town square
yes,
As a park.
as a park. Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
I just have a question. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the inventory, because I looked on the inventory on Alfred today. The golf courses are all fee-based. So you're adding those in there. For example, also, Liberty Lake Regional Park, as an industry review, that's fee-based. So you're adding in fee-based items into the inventory. Is that normally how it's done? Or I thought it was supposed to be something that was accessible to all, although probably, I mean, it is, if you have money. but how
Yeah.
does that work?
We included it because you included it last time and we wanted to show you if you use the same approach you did before, here's what that would look like. NRPA's guidance would say to only use those parklands that the city actively manages and owns, because you have direct jurisdictional control over how. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing I would point out is that Trailhead actually is used on a not fee basis in the winter. People do, they, snowshoe. They do, the kids use the sledding hill, etc. It is used for other purposes in the off season. And valid purposes. I can't speak to whether that's allowed on the county-owned golf courses or not.
I
Maybe
think so. Oh, yeah, it is.
Jim, you live over there. Do you know if that's allowed on the county-owned golf courses?
Yeah, walking is allowed. Sledding.
Cross-country skiing.
It's, sledding is not supposed to be allowed, but it's done. And I think I mentioned before, they do ice skating there on some of the lakes. I'm sure that's not supposed to, I'm sure that's not allowed, but that does happen.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, cross-country skiing is something that is done, and I think that's fine and dandy. So it's somewhat tribal, somewhat formalized. It's kind of a mixed bag.
And while you raise a very good point, I did want to just kind of balance that with, it's used part of the year with no fee.
And then, I mean, look at the number of acreage on the Liberty Lake Regional Park. I mean, that's a huge number of acreage. That's for pay. I suppose maybe you could walk in somehow, but,
No,
it kinda
you
skews
come
all-
before they collect and then you have a whole day to yourself.
There you go.
And the gates are not closed and locked.
Such a huge number. It really kind of almost skews our numbers.
Mhm.
You know,
It's-
and I'm just gonna throw this out, and there's even like with Trailhead Golf, there's a lot of municipal golf courses throughout the country that have a rate differential depending upon whether you're a resident or not. And that's something that could be considered. Residents could perhaps use it for free. Just as an example, I don't know that I would recommend that, but also I would think with respect to the county park at a price, I'm sure Liberty Lake could negotiate a deal where all residents with a resident card, free access. You know, it's just a question of what do you want to do? How do you want to spend your money? What do you negotiate?
Right, and the question is whether it's residents spending the money or taxpayers spending the money.
That's
in
right.
Reality,
That's right.
Yeah.
there is no free lunch.
I'm excited to hear about your alternative B.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get at what you're talking about, Nancy, though. So thank you you queued me up perfectly. We did not plan that. Okay, next slide. So alternative B is basically taking the previous alternative A's methodology and expanding on it to include more of those recommendations from NRPA. So it still uses a acreage to population formula, but it brings the acreage, we recommend a 10 acre per 1,000 population rather than the 30 that you adopted previously. And that's doable because the parkland definition is only those city-owned and maintained properties. So it would reduce the inventory from including those golf courses, like you mentioned, Nancy. So on the back of your sheet, the inventory for alternative B, you can see kind of what's included there. If you were to do that, your total acreage is 197 and gets you a 14.02 LOS. So if you adopted a 10 acres per 1,000, you're still hitting that metric. And it's just focused on Liberty Lake specific properties. So, and that does kind of fit the NRPA recommendation because you have direct jurisdictional control over those properties. So if we go to the next slide, we go into a little more detail. So what our recommendation would be for you guys to consider is adopting a new level of service standard that's the 10 acres per 1,000. And you're still hitting that looking into the future, the 2042 population, you're still at 11. So it doesn't necessarily get at that deficit thing, but it starts to be a lot more compelling of a story because you're just right there. And then we would also recommend that you consider additional level of service standards that you would adopt. One that's for residents per park to get at the access and equity issue we talked about. And then having a level of service recommendation for acreage of community parks. So a certain acreage of community parks per 1,000 residents. The NRPA median is roughly 5 acres per 1,000. Currently, you have about 2.71. Looking out into the future with that projected population, you're down to 1.74. So you'd have a little deficit there. Nothing alarming, but enough to be competitive should you want to go after some funding to enhance the community park category. We would recommend adopting a level of service standard of like 1 acre per 1,000 residents for neighborhood parks. You currently don't have a park that fits that 5 to 10 acre definition of neighborhood park. So this helps you be competitive for an acquisition project with RCO, for example. And then the same for, we recommend a 7.5 acre to 1,000 residents for your open space and natural area. And you're hitting that. The NRPA median is 5 to 10. So our recommendation is that 7.5. You're far exceeding that right now at 11.69. Into the future, you're still right there. But at least it allows you to kind of have an active goal specific to natural areas and open space, which if you just keep it at the high level acreage, you don't really get down to that level of specificity. And we're hearing a lot from the public and interest in a park that's less programmed, that's just like a peaceful walk or, time in nature. So it aligns with that. And then we recommend a level of service standard specific to trails, which is 0.5 miles per 1,000 residents. And you're far exceeding that now. You've doubled in that now, and you would continue to in the future.
Question for you on the neighborhood parks. So First of all, can you remind us what the definition of a neighborhood park is acreage wise?
5 to 10 acres.
Okay, so
I have that right, Eddie?
So if we looked at 1 acre, 1 acre per 1,000 resident, we would be basically 20 acres short. So we'd be looking at 3 to 4 parks. If we looked at 2 acres per resident, we're still 10 acres short, and that's we're probably looking at 1 to 2 parks. Just wanted to give a
Yeah.
context.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the recommendation is just using that NRPA median, which is roughly 1 to 2 acres. Like I said, you're not required. You could say 0.5, acres per 1,000 residents, if that feels more doable, given kind of the land constraints that you have in Liberty Lake, that is an important consideration. Like the town park that you're talking about, that's potentially planned. We could look at kind of what you have planned and if it helps meet that metric.
What's the actual lake cross because parts of it are part of the parkways.
No.
Regional
No.
parks.
A regional park.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this doesn't look at the regional park at all. This would just be Liberty Lake owned, like city owned properties. Yeah.
Seems like alternative B gives us a better way of servicing the community as we grow based on community feedback of wanting parks so that they can walk to, wanting the open, the green space, the bike trail, and all that stuff. And I think, the grants are huge anymore because the cost of the playground replacement equipment at Pavilion Park, I mean, it could be $500,000 easily. And we're not even talking about the splash pad. That's $1 million project, that whole thing. So if we can make ourselves attractive to grantors, that's huge. And I think by excluding, the big acreage numbers from the regional area, I mean, that's an added plus for our area, but we want to do what we have control of, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think that alternative B allows us to grow within that space to meet all those different goals that you've gone over today. I like that one far better than alternative.
Agreed.
Okay.
I also agree with a lot of what Nancy said. My question is on top of that, for the grants, it looks like we're still meeting a lot of the LOS. So are we even going to be eligible for grants on some of these things that we're already meeting? Are we going to be competitive in that space? She talked about playground equipment. Well, that's for a community park, which we're already meeting right now, even with alternative B. So that would be my question, because that was the con in alternative A, was that we wouldn't, be eligible for these or be in the running. With B, we would, but would we be in the running for all of these categories or just some of them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And you're right, these don't all, if you adopt it the way we have it here, you don't have a deficit in every category. We also didn't want you guys to feel like, man, we're not serving our residents well at all. What you could do, this is purely about acreage, so it's going to set you up well for acquisition. What you're talking about in terms of playground replacement, I think you're going to be competitive with that, showing the engagement results. When the community says, the slide is really old, or, some of the materials are no longer fully accessible and we want a fully accessible park, that what's going to make you competitive are those engagement results rather than your LOS for those types of projects.
Can I just ask, David, David Himbaugh is online. David, did you have a comment or a question?
No, I just didn't hear Nancy fully when she was speaking. I didn't know if her microphone was on. I had raised my hand earlier, but that's since been resolved.
Hello? Oh, well, there you go. Sorry.
What we could do tonight, if you want, because I know this is, a lot to digest, you could adopt that you're going to have park classification level of service standards, and we can noodle the number you know, based on what the priority projects start to look like in terms of if there's future planned parks, we can finesse the numbers to align in a way that's gonna help you meet the goals that you have. But really, it's the concept that I wanted folks to consider tonight is having not just an acreage per resident LOS, but also a park classification LOS. Will help you get those specific park types into your system if you desire them. And then facility and amenity needs would be kind of a different park category at RCO that's weighted really heavily on community engagement results. Yeah, yeah.
Question,
Speak into your microphone, please.
sorry. Question. Have you taken the opportunity to, with the alternate B options, plugged it back into your grade scoring? Because I'm assuming we won't be A's across the board. I could be wrong.
I don't think we didn't do that.
As a measure for, it goes back to your statement, are we serving the citizens? I mean, that's a quick visual measure. And I guess my second question is, this alternate B is really truly geared towards acquisition and grants. Is that it? Because I can see quickly, just by listening to your presentation, option A is pretty easy to work out. It's a quick calculator, we're good.
Yeah.
You better be in the know when you go to this chart. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. The reason I think we feel more supportive of B for you guys is just because you have direct control over these facilities. If you use a regional facility and then it gets like the hub and it doesn't work and it turns into a new car dealership, that acreage is no longer present for your community and you based your LOS on it. So you just don't know how those things are going to end up. I mean, that's the risk.
And that this is kind of tangential to the comment that you just made. Tim Olson is online and he asked the question, why do you not include the HOA owned parks? Although the city doesn't control them, most of them are not limited as they're not in a gated community. Is it the access or the city control? Great comment, Tim. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's both. It's really both reasons. I mean, they definitely are a caveat in terms of how they service the community, but because they don't serve the full community, we didn't recommend that you have a specific level of service standard for those. But they're still part of the greater equation. Like they're part of the analysis we did for meeting some of the broader community access needs. But
I actually think that there are some parks in the River District
Yeah.
which are open to everyone
Yep.
that
Okay.
actually meet the definition of a neighborhood park.
okay,
So I'm thinking specifically about Half Moon Park and
River Rock,
River Rock Park.
both of those.
are
Well,
fully
and
accessible.
the farm.
Yes, they are.
Is the
Okay.
farm considered part? It's got a
That's-
trail through it.
That's a good question, yeah.
It's an HOA amenity.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking on the fly here, but we could add those two HOA parks to your current baseline inventory of neighborhood park. You could still keep the level of service, classification for it, but you wouldn't be looking at needing, to acquire quite so much.
And Tom's point with regard to the what's referred to as the farm in the River District is there is a walking trail that ties into the Centennial Trail. There's also an orchard and community gardens that so it really does function like a park. It's more of a
Mhm.
passive use park, but it's
Mhm.
but yes.
What was the acreage on the neighborhood park?
It's roughly 5 to 10.
Well, those meet they won't meet the fives, so they won't meet the definition of neighborhood parks in that one.
I mean, you could put pocket park as a category, if you want to add a level of service standard for acreage of pocket park. we could certainly do that. And the HOAs you're definitely hitting that category. That's kind of how we grouped them in inventory of alternative A. You're probably not going to have a deficit because you have like 9 of them. You have a lot of really fun pocket parks. But we could add that as a category. So it's something that you're capturing in terms of it meeting a community need.
Be interested to see what that played out in all the pocket parks in there and just kind of see what it looks like. I mean, we know we're gonna have a deficit in the neighborhood park category, and so that may be a growth opportunity as we grow as a community, but I think, I know we don't have control, but like you said, Lisa, they're all open except for whatever's up in Legacy.
Well, and even what's up in Legacy, they have walking trails, etc. It's because it's all private streets, they don't score well in terms of the walk shed
Sure.
because they're private, but they do have sidewalks and trails, and there are some playgrounds in there that are serving that neighborhood. And one of the things as a land use planner, one of the things in many communities, the way they meet their park standard is by requiring the developer to provide a certain amount of park space within the development. And so that is a valid way to approach recreation. And in the cases of the specific area plans and Legacy Ridge, which was a planned unit development, that's exactly how that went down. So it's an argument that those HOA parks really should be included in the analysis as part of the recreational facilities that are providing services to our residents.
No, I like that, and I like that in all B, to see what that would look like.
Okay.
May I have a comment?
Yes.
We're getting into a lot of minutia in regards to how we orchestrate the numbers. I think what impressed me is your comment relative to the possibility of merely saying we could have an adjustment going down the road. That might be option C. Going back to option B, we just heard that it's going to cost $1 million to repair parts in one of our parks. So why in the world would we ever consider not being in an arena where we can share the money that other people are getting? So that would eliminate option A right away. Yes. Now, also, we have here a bottom line is we're going to make more parks. They're going to be smaller. I'm all for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because we do, as you point out, Lisa, we have a land crunch here.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna be making giant parks, we're gonna be making more pocket parks or possibly a neighborhood park, you know, depending on land availability.
Yeah.
So Lisa, I have a question. Does the city own any land that's not included in this analysis?
Town Square.
Town Square.
Is that the only tract that the city owns that's not included?
Well, so we own the public works yard that I would respectfully suggest that that's not
Gotcha.
right.
What about
The playground.
Might be for.
What about, I'm just
For the
curious, that the land that's kind of on the west side of Liberty Lake Road?
So that the land that's on the west side of Liberty Lake Road, the city did own that at one time. They sold it to Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District.
Yep. 3 years ago,
A little longer than that,
was it?
5.
So is that land then inaccessible to residents of the city?
No, it is accessible. I believe that they've always said that they would be open to creating a trail connection. However, they wanted it to remain in open space.
And what's their definition of open space? No development, no amenities, nothing?
I can't look into the mind of the directors of the Sewer and Water District. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what their definition is.
How many acres is that? Do you recall?
I want to, I want to say it was like 65.
And what was the rationale? You remember?
65, something like that.
Yeah.
You guys remember what the rationale was?
Well, they
So,
have a water tank up there and they were having challenges with access and they were having challenges with trespassing. I recall.
right, so they wanted to create some control there. The other thing is most of that property
Slope.
is very steep
Right.
and not
Yeah.
developable. I think that the community had some real concerns about the city, either hanging on to it or selling it to another developer. And there was pressure. There were people that were pushing the city and, very limited what could be done up there under the current zoning.
Yep.
And so,
it a golf tee.
I'm sorry.
Well, that, no.
No,
That was, well, that was on the east side of, I'm not
No.
talking on the west side.
on the west side.
Tom's right.
That would go over the road.
We're going way too far back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
I'm back.
Okay.
Or
okay.
Spokane.
I'm just talking about, yeah.
Like Coeur d'Alene.
It sounds like there's interest in revising alternative B to reflect some of the HOA parks, include an HOA, or not an HOA, a pocket park category. If there's a pocket park that meets the definition of neighborhood park, reflecting that.
And one of the questions that I have is, again, because we're looking at a pretty significant cost related to the deficit in neighborhood parks, that whether or not we feel that it's valuable to have that category, particularly given as Nancy pointed out, the kind of land constraint that we have. Also just keeping in mind that at the end of the day, if we're showing a deficit in our level of service, we have to have projects in our 20-year capital facilities plan that are going to bring it up to meet that standard. That is one of the GMA requirements. And so we're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for that. And grants are great, but I promise you that we cannot get 100% grant.
Yeah.
So what you're
Yeah.
saying is take out the neighborhood park and then add in the pocket park?
Yeah, we
because
could-
They're controlled by HOA. and that's
Right.
it.
And you could even expand the definition of pocket park to include
Mhm.
up to 5 acres.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally true. Like, we're just using NRPA kind of standard definitions, but you don't have to use those. Yeah, it's just a guidepost.
Is that gonna skew grant applicants? It's not matchy with.
I don't think so. No, it's however you've decided to define it and your level of service is based on that, as long as you can point to that. And you have a lot of qualitative data that's going to really support you in a grant. We didn't get into that tonight, but a lot of the like quotes from public comments are about, we love what we have, but it's getting crowded. When I want to go, it's already full. There's nowhere to park. Like we're starting to hear that in some of the feedback, and that's with 14,000 people. So I think you can show demand based on that to support a grant, and without just the LOS. The LOS is another tool to help you be competitive, but it's not the only tool. Just, yeah. So.
Any other comments, questions?
Just curious if we think the ball fields will skew our abilities to get grants when it seems like their access is super limited. I haven't tried to access like the Ridgeline ball field per se, but like the track and stuff, that's locked. You can't get in there. So, and it like doing it during the school year with sports practice and stuff, what's the level of access to a community member?
Well,
Yeah.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie, but I think when we looked at alternative B, we only looked at, well, I guess we did. No, you are correct. We actually did look at Ridgeline High School also, as opposed to the ones that we have where we have joint agreements, like shared use and maintenance agreements.
I think you only have, yeah, you don't have that at Selkirk either, do you? What you call joint maintenance agreements, we have nothing like that at Selkirk.
Do we?
I thought you did at Selkirk because they used
There's
the
a
Orchard
trail, I
Park.
think.
We have an agreement with Selkirk on the tennis courts over there, so there are
Okay.
limited times when those are not usable.
Okay,
And CV has priority use of those tennis courts for a period of time. And then we don't have any agreements at Ridgeline. And then we have a maintenance agreement and scheduling of the Liberty Lake Elementary and Liberty
Liberty
Creek
Creek.
schools,
right.
playgrounds. But again, those are inaccessible at certain times,
Right.
obviously. And they have priority use. CV has priority use always. So.
Thank you.
Difference for those schools in Ridgeline is Ridgeline's fenced and gated and locked up, I think, versus the ability to walk on to the.
Right, and again, to Jen Camp's point that, while there may be times when the use is limited, that's probably true in most parks. We rent out pavilions and whatnot. But the reality is that we do have access access during specific times, and the community has access. And so I think it does make sense to look at those shared use agreement schools, but maybe not Ridgeline.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
our error to have Ridgeline on there. It sounds like we should take it out of alternative B. And that's gonna make a difference. It's 21 acres, right? Like of the schools, it's the biggest.
That was
on
my
here,
next
so.
question. I thought the driver here was to identify city-owned, maintained properties. None of those fall into that.
We thought we were including ball fields that you have joint use agreements with. And so that was how we defined that you have some maintenance, like it's the same with the Centennial Trail, since you have like a maintenance agreement for that. So that's why that's included in alternative B. So that was just an error on our part for Ridgeline.
I mean, I get the idea behind the option B as it relates to grants, but pretty soon you start whittling away at this thing and the red flags are gonna go up that we don't have enough by a long ways, and it's already been identified. We have limited space to even think about purchasing, let alone proper zoning for anything like this.
Yeah.
So
Ba-
just-
Based on alternative B's inventory, I think even if we removed Ridgeline's acreage, you really don't have a deficit except for the neighborhood park. So in terms of community investment that you'd be on the hook for if you adopt this, right? It's really getting at Lisa's point that it would probably be a neighborhood park. So it's kind of like, what do you have, does that sound like something the community wants to kind of set themselves up for in terms of future investments? Or would we rather change that to Pocket Park? In which case you probably won't have a deficit there, but at least it gives you a metric to track over time. So the next time you do a park update, you're still looking at how is that smaller, neighborhood park size meeting the needs of the community. It sets you up to continually monitor that. So that's the benefit of that outside of grant funding, is it just allows you to look at these more specific types of parks because they serve the community in different ways.
Oh, and I just had another note from Tim Olson. Half Moon is 2.6 acres and River Rock is 4.6 acres. So it's almost at the 5 acre mark.
Yeah. Yeah,
You said 5.
I did. We
So
could
isn't
put
that the definition? We're stuck with the definitions that the major,
We could do 4 to 8.
okay.
Yeah, you really can make that neighborhood park definition Liberty Lake specific.
Well,
It's
I
just
think our pocket parks are neighborhood parks.
uh-huh.
Pocket
I
park
would
is
agree
a
with that.
term of
Yes.
what,
They're in,
convenience, but
yeah,
they're neighborhood parks. And if
Yes.
we redefine and measure, I think that's to Tim's point too.
got you. Uh-huh.
And I think we also need to put really a strong thought to the growth of our youth. I remember everybody was a rockabye baby in a carriage, and now they're having nowhere to go late at night. And if they had something, a particular park outlined or some areas for that type of population, we really should think about it in those terms also.
Well, from a community safety standpoint, the parks at night are going to continue to be restricted throughout the county.
No, 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 I'm not talking about having a park, designed so that kids can go play
Yeah.
at night. What I'm saying is in the summertime, when they want to be together as a group of kids, having a place where they can go. Safety aside during the day, but more important, where we won't see some of the violations that happen at night, because the smaller they are, the more you can see the convergence of kids doing things as they were not too long ago, graffiti and all of that, because it's just not, it accommodates the family dynamics of a younger child. The children are growing up here. And the mothers have already had, a lot of them have already had their children. And they're just watching them grow.
Just to that point, one of the things actually that Eddie did in the Parks Plan was develop a community demographic profile. It's one of the first things we looked at for Liberty Lake. And so there's a lot of data in there about what the population kind of demographic in terms of age spread and size of family and all of that's in there, and you can use that data to support grants. You can say, oh, we have a large population of teenagers, for example. So that supports, a type of park facility for a skate park or something that's separate than a playground. So you can mine that data from the Parks Plan too to support grants. I just wanted you guys to know that.
Good.
So the end play is option B, manipulate it. I shouldn't say that. Adjust, sorry. Adjust, modify
There you go.
the identifiers to give us the best chance for grant applications. Because if you stand back and look at the big picture, take the blinders off, we've got plenty based on option A, right?
Right.
So the document should set us up for success as it relates to grants. However that looks, that's what it looks like. Just my opinion.
No, I agree.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, just to make sure I'm hearing you guys correctly, we're going to modify alternative B to redefine neighborhood parks to fit the current pocket park reality here, because they are embedded in neighborhoods, right? And then we'll calculate that, and I'm sure my guess is it's going to far exceed that NRPA median of 1 acre per 1,000 residents. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. So it won't show a deficit, but at least it's an accurate category representative of what you have.
It's reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And take out Ridgeline.
Yes.
Yeah, which will affect that first row of total parkland. It'll affect that, my eyes, 14.10, your current LOS up there. But I don't think it's gonna bring you below the 10 acres we're suggesting. It might for the projected 2042, right? You're looking at 1108 acres per 1,000 residents right now based on population in 2042.
Yeah,
So if
and-
we take out Ridgeline, you might show a little deficit there, which is maybe okay, what I'm hearing. So you have,
Well, it's the reality.
yeah.
And I just caught this because it's the first time it's been said. It's actually 2046 is the planning horizon.
Yes. Yeah, we had 2042 to 2046, like a range in there. But yes, you're right. You're right.
Town Square Park, depending, that number might need to be adjusted down if there's buildings there someday.
Sure.
Because right now, that's the total parcel size, 4.5. Yeah, and right now, a small part of it's developed and most of it is open field.
And
And if
there
we do
are
those-
different ideas about what should go there, aren't there?
If we do those adjustments, to Phil's point, I don't think that there's going to be the red flags that are going to be a financial burden for the next council and community.
But
Okay.
just, there may be some action items with respect to discussion with CV regarding access to Ridgeline. If there's some facility that they have that, no, nothing.
they're pretty protective. They lock up their fields.
Mm.
Yeah.
Their liability is huge if they open it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's just a
It's a- yeah.
non-starter.
A beautiful facility.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay, so Eddie and I will rework the alternative B option. We could present it to Jen and Lisa in a staff memo, and then you guys can put it on a future agenda for an action item. Does that sound like a good
Yes.
path
That-
forward?
Lovely.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for
Good
walking through all of that. And
Thank you.
it's a lot to digest, so I appreciate you guys participating in that. Thank you. the
Thanks for your
feedback.
time and all your work.
Yes.
You too, Eddie. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
We did an engagement update next.
No, they do it at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. All right, any other questions, comments for the Parks and Arts Commission? Thank you, guys. Yes,
I
ma'am.
would like to say one thing. Part of her plan too that she presented to us talked about connectivity, like with trails and how to get around to the different parks in Liberty Lake. And so I think it's really important when we're developing our streets that we have a map of like the bicycle lane network, where golf carts can go safely, where some of these other vehicles that are starting to pop up in our community, we're really aware of safety education on our streets and getting to all the parks. So that's something I think we need to have a priority of having some kind of map network for the bike lanes and where golf carts can go, and have that maybe online or also printed out so people can access that safely around to the different parks.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Ferris. In fact, if you'd like to stay over, we're handling that in the next session.
Okay, I'm good with that.
No, the planning term, I think, is intermodal transportation.
Well, multimodal
Multimodal.
or
transportation.
micro mobility is
That
what
could- that would-
what
that
the
would
chief
as well.
said at the meeting.
Yes.
City council.
Bike safety expert.
Yeah, we are actually addressing the transportation element for the comprehensive plan in our next session. So
Like right now or the next meeting?
Right now.
Oh,
now,
okay,
after 5 minutes,
let's do that.
anyone that'd like to be excused, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we will continue. Thank you guys for being here.
Or concerns about what is contained on page 1.
All right. And
Well, since we have, I guess, would you talk about policy one?
policy,
Oh,
when,
you're not that far.
we're not that far,
I'm
yeah.
Sorry,
In your packet, you actually have this up.
I jumped to that page. I went to the second page.
Okay, so, on page 2, up to, we're not gonna include the, goals and policies, because we're gonna be spending some time on that. Okay, so, on page 2, any concerns with anything in there? This is really just kind of introducing the elements, so I wouldn't have expected that there were. All right, now we get into the transportation goals and policies, and it's interesting because we only have one goal and related to transportation, that is maintaining a multimodal transportation system that provides safe and efficient travel to, from, and within the city. Simple and straightforward. We have quite a few policies, and I want to say with the policies, the first thing I did with this is I accepted the red lines that from the last version where we had made some amendments to it and the things that you had agreed with. And then what is redlined are all the changes that we had talked about at that last meeting. So again, policy 1, promote pedestrian and bicycle transportation and increase safety, mobility, and convenience for non-motorized modes of travel. Transportation policy 2, require transportation improvements needed to serve new development to be in place at the time of new development.
Lisa,
Yes.
I don't think you need to read all these.
Okay, so
I think if we wanted to take a look at it, one of the things I like is that you started every single one of them off with an action. And then it explains it later. So unless somebody has questions, if you're gonna read this,
Okay,
we're gonna be
all
here
right.
forever.
Okay, so let's start with, I did catch a typo in there, so I've added that. So let's start with policy 2. We did make some changes. Are you good with those?
We'll just go back to policy 1 where you say it's non-motorized.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have to define what non-motorized is?
Without a motor.
Well, yeah, but then you have the e-bikes and all the other stuff.
Electric bikes.
That's a motor.
Yeah, it is, but isn't that part of the,
It's addressed later.
okay, thank you.
So there was a suggestion on that topic about adding a map. Is this where you would do that?
So we do have some maps already embedded in this. I think and this came up at our sidewalk master plan committee. I think what Katie's looking for is something outward facing on the website. And we would have to develop that in working with Chief, and Chief is going to be proposing some changes first to Liberty Lake Municipal Code. I think those have to happen before we develop that map, put it on the website. We actually had talked about the concept of actually requiring them to be the e-transportation pieces to be permitted, just as we do with golf carts, and that we could then give them the map and provide them with the rules of engagement. It would be a way to say that, oh, because a number of these types of equipment can't be operated by children younger than 16. And so that is something that we would need to communicate with the parents at the time that they were permitting these bikes or e-scooters or whatever version of whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so that's, I think that's something that has to be, that I'm agreeing. I think it's a great plan, and there is an education component that has to happen. But once we have that municipal code in place, I think it's a great thing to not only have come up with some signage that indicates which routes are effective or what types of equipment you can use on them and what you cannot.
Lisa, to simplify it, what Katie and I are on the same subcommittee on is bicycle lanes and pedestrian safety. So you already have the GIS complete for sidewalks.
Right.
Okay, so I think instead of waiting until everything is all done, if we had something that showed where there are bike lanes.
That map is already included in this chapter.
No, I'm not saying that. It's available to the public. That's where. I
We
think-
actually had that available at Farmers Market.
I know,
Summer.
I know, but on our website where you can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those
do
two
that.
things, not all the rest of the
Okay.
multimodal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. Any comments on policies 1 through 5? Let's go on to 6 through 10.
Nope.
We're getting a no from everyone.
Go, go, go.
11 through 15.
Okay, on 11, just, it was a question. That was the right of way. Is there any right of way for alternative transportation that is not county owned?
There are, so the city actually owns
The
a
unused,
portion.
I'm sorry, the unused rail rights of way. My understanding was that the county owned all of that.
That's not necessarily true.
Well,
Some of
okay
it-
then.
So it's, some of it is within city right of way now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could use it for that purpose. It's one of the reasons why we have uber big, right of ways along parts of Mission Avenue on the south side of the city.
Mhm.
It's also we actually have, it's actually incorporated, it's actually been just part of and dedicated to the city as part of Town Square. But those are old railroad right of ways along that frontage, and so the city does own some of those.
Okay, okay. That was just a question.
Others on 11 through 15. Okay. 16 through 18, because I can't scroll, I can't include more than that.
I had a question on 17. Why do we want to reduce the right of way width?
So and again, that's a fair question. That was in the prior one. One of the things that it does, what it does is it does promote more traffic calming. And again, the widths are determined based upon what the function of the functional classification of the roadway is. So in some cases, we can provide more bike lanes, or we can provide more on-street parking if it's appropriate. As long as we're maintaining the lane widths that are.
So you just use the word that I think might be better there is maintain as opposed to reduce,
Okay.
because I think that's a point.
It would seem to me you want to increase the city's flexibility.
Uh-huh.
in
So
this
are
kind
we
of thing.
maintain-
So leave it open for the city to determine, based upon the right of way map, what the right of way should be, and,
Exactly.
So are we talking about width, or are we talking about the number of dedications?
No, we're
says
talking
width.
Width dedication.
specifically about the width of the right of way that's dedicated to the city as
Yeah.
part of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give yourself lots of flexibility.
Sure.
And plan for the future.
Yeah.
Anything on 18?
I had a question on 16. How much different is it than 14? What's the distinguishing factor? Because a private road is considered a road also.
Mhm.
Does it need to be separated is my question, I guess.
So there's two different thoughts here.
Okay.
City standards are more than just complete streets. It has to do with the road section, which is what the base is, what the depth of pavement is, or the depth of pavement. It has to do with width of the lanes. It has to do with infrastructure related to parking, bike lanes, and sidewalks. So it includes all of those things, but the point is that private roads are going to be held to the same standard as public roads,
Right.
even though
But
it's
isn't
not.
that included in 16?
That's how that's how I'm reading it, is it's already included in 16, but I see
Well,
your
complete,
point too. I'm just-
complete street standards is just, this talking about bike ped roadway facilities. And it's not talking about the construction of the road. So I think it's,
Okay.
there are two different thoughts.
Okay.
And this one in particular, we wanted to include because we are going to be updating development, as we update the development code to expressly include complete street ordinance, because that's gonna set us up for more grants. Even though it's already embedded in our development code, we've never actually adopted that. And that's some of the discussion later in this.
So just to go back on 17 then, so you're gonna say, instead of reduce right away, you're gonna say maintain flexibility
What I
and
wrote
with,
was
and right away with dedications.
maintain right-of-way width dedications at the minimum necessary to provide for transportation needs and maintenance
that covers
requirements.
Okay.
That's good.
Okey-dokey.
So 19 through 24, because that's all I can get on the screen.
24, Lisa, when I read this, it says that the city thinks that a level of service D for signalized intersections is okay. And I would say that you ought to insert the word minimum. Let's see, establish intersection level of service standards for the city of Liberty Lake at a minimum level of service D. Because D is at the bottom of the scale and you got a lot of delay. So you ought to be a minimum.
We talk about that later in this, but I can establish intersection minimum level of service.
Yes, the same as, do the
Standards.
same for unsignalized intersections. So we have a minimum level.
So that next clause,
For signalized intersections and a level of service E for unsignalized.
and a
intersections.
minimum level of service E.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
Charlie's saying.
Well, what we said. What it says is establish intersection minimum level of service standards for the city of Liberty Lake at a level of service D for signalized and a level of service E for unsignalized intersections. We already called the both.
Okay.
That was kind of my
That works.
question though, is why are you going with E for unsignalized? That seems kind of.
So because we actually, that is what we
Because of the
already have
volume.
adopted, because unsignalized intersections have a slightly lower, the seconds delayed are slightly different than for signalized intersections. But because typically in unsignalized intersections often have unbalanced legs. And so one leg of the intersection may have a longer delay.
Right.
That's common. And that is what has been adopted. We previously adopted the county's level of service standards. And this is the level of service standard in the county planning policy.
Thank you.
So
I did add, even though this is actually a WashDOT standard, I don't know that the county has adopted a standard for roundabouts, but given the roundabouts, we included a volume to capacity ratio of less than 90% for roundabouts. That's the standard that WashDOT uses.
Policy 28 question.
Yes.
So you start off with golf carts. If you just change what you did and just say permit golf carts, e-bikes, e-scooters and other personal vehicles to only operate on specific designated. I think then you're.
It reads better.
And just a little bit of a should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just
Well, should
by
be
way of
symbolic.
information, I can tell you the Liberty Lake Police Department has said the most critical safety issue we have right now is e-bikes and e-scooters. You've got kids that don't know how to operate them, and some of these bikes can do 50, 60 miles an hour. And they are
On sidewalks.
very concerned.
Yeah.
The
Well-
I don't know what they're called, unicycles that people.
Yes.
Those are even worse.
Yeah.
And they can go really fast. And I mean, I watched somebody on it.
There's absolutely nothing.
There should be license requirements.
Yeah.
So they should be banned. Some of that stuff should just be banned, really.
Totally
Yeah.
agree. All right.
Hey, just,
Sorry.
All right.
Yep.
Where was that stuff when I was a kid? Dang it.
So I wanted to bring,
wait,
based upon the conversations we had.
We call them skateboards then.
Right?
They do have electric skateboards. They do.
Not when we were kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well.
they were
I had a.
steel wheels too.
Added a gas powered.
Oh,
motor
yeah.
to it. So, they were around, but kind of. So based upon conversations that we had at the commission meeting last time, I've added 2 new transportation policies. Encourage and promote the availability and use of travel on-demand services in Liberty Lake, including but not limited to paratransit services, rideshare programs, for-profit rideshare services, e.g. Uber, Lyft, Yellow Cab, etc. And then Transportation Policy 30, develop and implement guidance and signage in support of and to better promote active transportation and intermodal networks throughout the city. To Katie's point.
Can I make a comment on
Yes.
number 28 again? Which organization sets the standard or establishes the rules for the use of the permits on the golf courses, on the golf carts?
So that is established by municipal code. That is the workshop that Chief Simmons is going to bring back to City Council in the new year. And we're going to work on better tailoring our municipal code to address current reality for the city.
But thank you.
The golf carts are registered with the police department.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All these e-bikes and everything else, there's no registration.
There's no registration.
Right,
Nothing
and
required.
that is one of the things that they want to require.
Yeah.
And that is how we have an opportunity to then educate people on where they can and can't ride them and
Mhm.
where they can, who can and cannot operate them.
And have a class on how to do it, et cetera, and then have a fee. And then, we're making this a vehicle that people are going to use just like their automobile. And that's good. That's good.
and I would just add to it, they should also consider just not allowing certain types of those things because they're just. But
The police department.
I'm going
Agreed.
to suggest that when Chief Simmons brings this topic to City Council, it would be a very good council meeting for you all to share your thoughts, because I've heard everybody's thoughts on this in past meetings, and so so definitely consider yourself invited, and when I know when it is on the council schedule, I will be sure to share that with you all.
Yes.
okay, question, where can I find the current system of impact mitigation and user fees? Referring to 27, you're gonna maintain a system. Where can I find the information on what that system is?
So we have it online in our permit center. It is the Harvard Road impact fees. That's the only impact fee system that we have. It is a voluntary impact fee, and it's based on the number of PM peak hour trips generated by the use. And it's typically it is a condition of any
So that's it? So it's not fees, it's just, or it's not a system, it's just one?
well, it is a system in that and then it's dedicated funds, and there's rules about how and what we can apply them to.
That's the only thing. So it's just a user-based fees and mitigation fees
But
for this Harvard.
But that doesn't mean that there can't be other impact fees or mitigation.
But there
fees.
aren't any right now.
That is correct, but again, there is some other than Harvard Road mitigation fees, but there is some, in my department, we are managing that through the building permit process and through SEPA reviews, et
Okay.
cetera.
Okay. And the other question is, the numbers, they don't run necessarily represent any kind of priority.
No, they do not. They
Okay.
they were, and you
just-
can feel free to prioritize if you
No,
like.
no,
It's just the order that they were in.
That's fine.
And the two new ones are just added to the end.
Yep.
Is yellow cab still a thing?
In some cities it is.
Just curious, I'd seen one for a while.
I don't know that there is a yellow cab per se around here. I guarantee that there is one in New York City.
Well, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. All right.
Okay.
Are we good? Goals and policies were probably the biggest one that we needed to cover. I wanted to see what your thoughts were on the transportation network. Any comments, concerns with page 5? How about page 6?
Yeah, I must be directionally impaired.
Oh, by the way, I actually am, so I could have something wrong.
So on Appleway Avenue, from Liberty Lake Road west to the eastern, how do you go west to the eastern city limits?
Wait, where, can you tell me where you are?
I'm at the very, very
Very
bottom of page 6, where you want to go west to get to the east.
Okay, wait, it's noted this. What?
How do you do that? How do you do that?
Appleway from Liberty Lake Road. No, it's east. It's,
I thought maybe I was.
no, good catch. And by the way,
There's another one like that.
I'm sure that there are, because this was challenging writing.
Yeah.
How did you pick that? I mean, that is really a small, little tiny.
Well, it's because,
pencil.
no, I was driving with my wife.
Well, that explains it.
Never.
We are quickly running out of time, so,
We don't want to go, that's a little.
yeah.
Want to hear it over drinks.
All right, so, any other comments on page 6? Good catch, Jim, thank you.
I am gonna tell you why.
No. Page 7. Page 8. These are maps you saw at the last meeting. Page 9, which we talked about at the last meeting. This is what we're proposing to reclassify. And then this is just a description of the roadway segments proposed for reclassification. Active transportation. I did leave a placeholder for summary of the sidewalk master plan. That won't happen until February, sorry. But we will get that in there. Trying to keep moving. Here is our City of Liberty Lake bicycle and pedestrian pathways. And then we have a description of the transit and paratransit network. We're trying to get the GIS layers from STA, which is why you don't have a map yet for it, but I did put a placeholder for that. We will show all the routes within the City of Liberty Lake.
That'd be great.
And also point out where our existing park and ride is on Mission Avenue and where the future park and ride is on Appleway, just to the west of the flyover. Air travel and freight. Comments? City design standards, this is where we get into the
Well,
question of
just
complete.
right above city design, there's another case where you have to go west to go east.
From, I think I might have copied that also. I think I might have copied that, from the other section, yes. Okay, in fact, I know I did.
Okay.
All right. Discussion regarding complete streets. Did anybody have any comments, concerns with that? And the level of service standards. So this is kind of getting into the details of the level of service standards. So it starts on 13 and continues on through 14 for vehicular level of service, level of service. And this is the chart that, and I shared this with you last time. This is the chart with the differences in the signalized versus unsignalized delays. One of the things that you'll notice is that for unsignalized intersections, a level of service E is comparable to a level of service D for a signalized intersection. So it really is pretty neck and neck. And then I also talked about the multimodal level of service. And I think we talked about this last time. I did a lot of digging. I saw what city of Spokane is doing. They had a lot more data on the whole the stress ratings for bike routes and whatnot, but they're still going with the pretty much binary. They have it or they don't. They have it or they don't. They will eventually be looking at having a more robust level of service standard, and that is something that we also recognize. We don't have the data right now to be able to do anything more than just the simple binary. Are there sidewalks on both sides of the street? Are there, or alternatively, a multimodal pathway? Are there bike lanes or a multimodal pathway? Again, I think that that's super important, and I think that's how we stated it. So, see if at present, the City of Liberty Lake requires bicycle and pedestrian facilities on all collectors and arterials. The standard requirement is sidewalks and bike lanes on both sides of the street, while allowing a multimodal pathway to be provided in lieu of bike lanes and sidewalks on the same side of the street. And I think that's what our standard is right now. It's a good standard. We actually have a very similar standard on residential streets, but we don't always, again, often often the bike is a class 3 share the roadway situation. We don't necessarily have signage for that.
Is it required on all arterials?
So we have to provide a level of service standard for all collectors and arterials. Well, actually for all arterials. We do require it for all collectors and arterials. Again, they can provide a multimodal pathway in lieu of, and there are circumstances where we can vary from what the design deviations. But if they do that, if they do a design deviation, they're going to have to show a parallel route, which just because we really fundamentally lack a grid system here in the City of Liberty Lake, very hard to do that.
Is it also required, like with the roundabouts, that there's the bike share of the roundabout?
No, and that's, again, it depends upon the roundabout. I realize that I think probably 8% of the bicycle riders actually are comfortable with that scenario in a roundabout, but we do have alternates, pathways. There has to be a way for the bikes. There has to be bicycle connectivity. But as you see in the River District at the roundabout at Kramer Parkway,
there is, and again, I think that because of the volumes of traffic and the, it makes a lot of sense to get them off the roundabout, from a safety standpoint. And the last thing I think anybody wants to see is kids, trying to navigate a bike lane on a roundabout, or
Okay, we
they have to, bicycles can always share the roadway. There's no prohibition, but providing a bike lane invites,
Disaster.
yes.
We've got 3 minutes.
we only have 3 minutes left. We either need to, have a motion to extend or to, we need to move on to, citizen comments. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Are there any citizens online? Okay, any citizens present for comments? Quick secretary's report?
Yes, very quickly. So, you're gonna see that, couple things. You're gonna see that through the planning commission schedule that we've moved things around a little bit. We're gonna see some slippage on the schedule as it relates to the capital facility plan, and as a result of that, and this has more to do with the fact that some of our input into that is gonna be more limited. So, we're now probably looking at trying to wrap up the draft of the comp plan by the end of March, so that we can have a city council workshop. It'll be a separate workshop from between March and April, or from March 30th to March 10th, so that we can get it to Commerce for their review. But even still, even as of today, I had some things changing on this. So, the transportation, or the final for the network analysis and also the transportation resiliency plan, we're gonna have in January. It's likely the resiliency plan probably won't be ready until the second meeting, so we're gonna move some things around, possibly do some chapter cleanups, maybe do the rest of this, because I have drafted the network analysis. We will be including the resiliency plan in that, but anyhow. We did have a kickoff meeting for our sidewalk master plan last Friday. They'll be meeting again in January. Also, the CFP work group, we're now looking at that being more like January, and there are some for the kickoff meeting, and it's what it needs to be, because we're just not quite there yet. The other thing that I'm gonna say on that, and apologies about that, but some decisions that council have made now require some clarification for us to even be able to, we have an adopted facilities plan. What does that mean? We have a contract in place for a design contract in place. What does that mean? So questions that we need to, conversations we need to have with the new council in terms of giving us direction. on this.
Lesson, but it ain't funny.
Any,
It's not funny.
any planning commission reports? Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for bearing.
Lisa,